You sketched the famous Happy Birthday, Mr. President dress Marilyn Monroe wore in 1961. Kim Kardashian would later wear that dress at the Met. When they say it's so beautiful, it stands the test of time.
In classic Hollywood, the danger wasn't always in the script. It was stitched into the costumes. Some costumes did more than change how a star looked. They shook Hollywood to its core. A single outfit could stir outrage, spark protests, or even drag an actor's name through scandal. Were these clothes just fabric, or silent weapons against control? Let's uncover the most controversial outfits that changed Hollywood forever. Number 10. Joan Crawford's revealing dress in Grand Hotel. Joan Crawford stepped into Grand Hotel wearing a dress that carried more weight than any of her lines. Designed by Adrian, it was a black gown with a sharp white collar that instantly drew the audience's attention to her face. At first glance, it seemed almost plain, but the cut had a modern edge. When the camera lingered, the gown revealed a careful mix of modesty and lots of suggestion. This contrast unsettled some viewers and fascinated others, which is why the look became unforgettable. Her character, Flämchen, wasn't the kind of secretary audiences expected. She took dictation, yes, but her life spilled far beyond office walls. In the film, she posed for photographs, entertained men, and accepted favors that hinted at wanting something more than friendship. And audiences probably depicted it in harsh terms as a secretary who blurred the line between work and intimacy, expressly suggesting that her character, Flämchen, offered more than secretarial duties. And of course, this caused a lot of controversies. What even deepened the chaos was when Joan Crawford admitted to removing the bra and girdle, not for shock value, but to create a softer and more sensual silhouette. This choice gave Flämchen a balance of vulnerability and daring that the camera could not resist. Meanwhile, Crawford admitted to having hesitated over the role, worried that the limited wardrobe might undercut her glamorous image, yet this pared-down style became one of her most defining early performances. The pre-code years allowed films to show women who broke social rules with sympathy, and Crawford's dress carried that spirit. It became a symbol of survival, desire, and the choices a woman might make when cornered. Next up is a costume that pulled an entire studio into a scandal it did not expect. Number 9. Greta Garbo's revealing negligee in Mata Hari. In the film Mata Hari, shot in 1931, Greta Garbo wore a negligee that changed the conversation about costumes in Hollywood. A negligee was rarely seen on screen at the time, and certainly not in such revealing form. On screen, the fabric left little to the imagination, and that alone made the moment unforgettable for audiences of the early 1930s. In the intimate scenes with Ramon Navarro, Garbo appears in what was called the most revealing negligee designer Adrian ever created. The fabric clung to her frame, the jewels caught the light, and the camera lingered long enough to make viewers shift in their seats. For the early 1930s, it felt like the screen had gone further than it should, and censors were quick to notice. By the time the film was reissued in 1934, 3 minutes of footage had been cut away. The reason was clear, because those intimate moments, framed by that costume, were considered too much for a nation now living under the stricter production code. What audiences once saw as bold artistry was rewritten as indecency. Supporters of Adrian's work argued that the design belonged to a larger vision. Well, the wardrobe was actually pulled from ballet russe influences and aimed to place Mata Hari in a high place. In that context, The negligee was meant to be both beautiful and symbolic, yet its meaning was quickly overshadowed by scandal. However, most people today only know the censored version. The uncensored print, still locked away in Brussels, has never been shown to the public. Still, we can't help but wonder, what difference would Garbo's performance make if modern audiences could finally see the negligee in full, without the cuts that once silenced it? Hollywood audiences were used to women dazzling in gowns. But what happens when the glamour shifts into a territory they never expected? That twist came in the form of Marlene Dietrich's tuxedo, and audiences weren't ready. Number 8. Marlene Dietrich's tuxedo scandal in Morocco in 1930. Marlene Dietrich stepped into Morocco wearing an impeccable white tie, top hat, and tails designed by Travis Banton. The outfit stood as a challenge to everything audiences expected from female stars. Tailored to a razor edge, it gave her a calm, controlled presence on stage and in close-ups. In a room built for tradition, the sight of a woman in men's evening wear felt quietly explosive. What happened next turned a costume into an act of defiance. During her performance, she wore the suit, and in a moment that stunned everyone, Marlene Dietrich kissed a woman in the audience. This brief gesture moved the scene from stylish to scandalous and helped make the film unforgettable. Critics and fans called it daring, and the role earned Dietrich an Academy Award nomination, showing that risk on screen could also bring reward. Still, the applause did not shield her from real-world backlash. In 1933, Paris authorities warned she could be arrested for wearing trousers in public, and Dietrich answered with a quiet kind of rebellion. She stepped off a train in a suit, took the police chief by the arm, and led him off the platform. The moment read as performance and protest at once. What followed was a broader shift that reached far beyond cinema. The tuxedo moment fed a fashion revolution. Laws and customs that policed women's clothing began to crack. In France, a long-standing ordinance required police permission for women to wear men's clothing until it was formally changed in 2013, which shows how long such rules lingered. Marlene Dietrich's suit did more than shock. It helped push a fashion shift and a social conversation about who could wear what in public, and its effect is still visible in fashion and gender debates today. Number 7. Theda Bara's snake bra costume in Cleopatra. Theda Bara's role in Cleopatra came as a visual shock to everyone. Reports say the production featured as many as 50 costume changes for Bara, and among the surviving publicity photos is the infamous coiled snake bra, a piece reportedly held in place with spirit gum. This image cut through everyone's expectations. It read as costume, ornament, and provocation all at once, enough to make audiences look twice. Fox Studios understood the power of that image and leaned into it. They didn't present Bara as a working actress. Instead, they turned her into a myth. Studio press claimed she had been born in the shadow of the Sphinx, raising her from starlet to something untouchable and strange. Her contract reportedly limited public appearances, and the less accessible she became, the more audiences believed the story. As usual, all these came with consequences. Bara quickly became Hollywood's first true vamp, the bad girl figure, who held power through seduction. It was a character type that shocked audiences and made moral watchdogs stand on their feet, especially as the 1930 production code loomed over Hollywood. Costumes that exposed so much skin and suggested even more would not survive the stricter years to come. And yet, to crown it all, there is no evidence on some of Theda Bara's movie works anymore. A 1937 Fox Vault fire destroyed the majority of the studio's silent-era negatives, wiping out most of Bara's films and leaving only photographs to tell the story. Number 6. Barbara Stanwyck's seduction wardrobe in Babyface. In 1933, in the movie Babyface, designer Ori Kelly dressed Barbara Stanwyck, who played Lily Powers, the way a commander prepares a soldier, with every piece designed for impact. Each suit, gown, and hat did more than conceal or reveal. As Barbara Stanwyck climbed out of a blue-collar past, her clothes changed like badges, signaling each step up the ladder. The wardrobe change made her look unstoppable and dangerously deliberate, and audiences could not look away. The story itself is nothing short of ruthless. Each costume matched a conquest, showing how appearance becomes a tool in her rise from worker to boardroom player. Dialogue in the early cut even borrows a hard line from Nietzsche, urging the young woman to exploit what she has and take control. That one line turns the film into something more dangerous. It forces you to ask whether Lily was exploiting men or if the men were exposing themselves all along. Because of this, censors did not hesitate to strike back. In April 1933, New York's censorship board rejected the film outright, demanding heavy edits and a new ending that punished Lily for her ambition. The result wasn't confined to one movie. It sparked a wave of fear that pushed Hollywood into enforcing the production code with a new level of discipline. Any hint of a woman turning desire into leverage suddenly became a threat that the industry was eager to contain. And that tells you just how shaken people were by the story Lily told through her clothes. For decades, the uncensored Babyface was buried, stripped of its bold edges, and reshaped into something better and safer. This version turned Lily into another morality tale, a caution instead of a challenge. But history had a surprise in store. In 2003, a print of the original surfaced at the Library of Congress, and it revealed what had been hidden all along. Critics saw not a scandal, but a daring portrait of a woman claiming her own agency through style. The censored cut may have warned audiences away from power, yet the restored version leaves behind a sharper question. Who really decides when clothing becomes a threat to the world watching? And more importantly, why were they so afraid of what she wore? You might think the biggest controversies in style came from gowns or red carpets. However, something unusual managed to grab headlines in ways few could have predicted. Number 5. Jane Russell's peasant blouse in The Outlaw. Businessman and filmmaker Howard Hughes had a reputation for chasing extremes, and when it came to The Outlaw, he wanted more than a Western with gunfights and outlaws. He wanted a visual jolt that no one could forget, and his focus landed squarely on Jane Russell. The goal, in his mind, was not another line of dialogue or dramatic scene, but a piece of engineering. He commissioned a custom underwire bra, something designed to sculpt her figure in a way audiences had never seen before. The blouse she wore was simple enough, a peasant-style top, but Hughes wanted it to do more than blend into the background. He wanted it to become the story itself. The problem was that Jane Russell herself was not impressed. According to her own words, decades later, the bra was stiff and uncomfortable, and she quietly tossed it aside. What ended up on screen then was not Hughes's creation at all, but her own choice of undergarment. Still, that small act didn't erase the intention behind the costume. Every photo, every scene seemed to highlight her figure, and whether the bra was his design or hers, the audience saw exactly what Hughes intended them to notice. The film suddenly became less about the story and more about the image it projected. Of course, that image alone set off alarms. The Production Code Administration, the watchdog of Hollywood morality at the time, zeroed in on the outlaw and demanded cuts. Years passed as censors and executives wrestled over how much of Jane Russell's presence could remain on screen. The delays were costly, but they also turned the blouse into something bigger than fabric. It became a battleground, a symbol of how far Hollywood could go before the gatekeepers slammed the door. Looking back, the story of that peasant blouse and engineering bra is more than a wardrobe choice. It captures the clash between a producer's obsession, a performer's quiet defiance, and a system determined to control what the public was allowed to see. And, for a wild card, Constantine. Not vintage Hollywood, but its costumes made waves big enough to earn a mention. Number 4, Constantine. The film wrapped its lead in a world-weary trench coat that became a kind of uniform for a man who lives between Earth and hell. Costume designer Louise Frogley was tasked with making clothing that felt lived in and edged with danger. Some of the movie's most talked about looks belong to the angels and demons. Tilda Swinton, who played Gabriel, was wrapped in something deliberately hard to pin down. It was a look that pulled from both masculine and feminine lines and left viewers unsure of what they were seeing. Peter Stormare, who played Lucifer, fought for an appearance that would feel strange and unforgettable, reportedly insisting on the white suit and the unsettling touches that made his final scene stick in viewers' minds. Those choices pushed the film toward a visual language that some critics found audacious. The movie also faced studio nerves. Some religious references were considered too blunt by the producers, so they cut or trimmed them. They also removed a biblical reference because it was deemed too provocative for a wide audience. Those edits show how costume and imagery can collide with commercial caution when a film tests cultural boundaries. Today, Constantine's wardrobe survives in a different kind of debate. Fans copy the trench coat for cosplay and argue over the look of each supernatural figure. Scholars point to the film as an example of how costume can carry theme, theology, and controversy all at once. However, when a costume transforms meaning into a visual representation, who determines if that visual should be kept in the film or removed? Number 3. Rita Hayworth's black satin dress in Gilda. In the film Gilda, Rita Hayworth steps into a nightclub and changes the room with a single number. Costume designer Jean Louis dressed her in a black satin gown that hugged her shape and left her shoulders bare. Long gloves completed the look, and during the song Put the Blame on Mame, Hayworth removes the gloves one by one. The gesture is simple, almost casual. And however, the black lash that followed was insane. The dress worked with light and motion to shape the scene. The timing, the gesture, the way the fabric clung and shimmered hinted at something more electric than the camera could directly show. Jean-Louis had built hidden support into the gown so she could move without fear of a wardrobe mishap. Almost immediately, the glove removal becomes an intimate moment, not by revealing flesh, but by turning a private act into a public statement. In an era when film censors watched for overt displays of the body, the gown and gesture together bypassed many restrictions. The wardrobe became a subtle weapon, delivering erotic energy that the code recognized but struggled to name. Afterwards, that scene sealed Hayworth's image as a classic femme fatale and gave the black satin dress a life beyond the film. Number 2. Marilyn Monroe's white dress in The 7-Year Itch. In the summer of 1954, Marilyn Monroe stood poised over a subway grate in New York City, her white dress billowing upward in the breeze. This seemingly innocent moment would become one of the most iconic images in film history. The scene, filmed for The 7-Year Itch, was captured by photographer Sam Shaw, who had previously staged a similar image with a sailor and a young girl at Coney Island. Shaw's idea was to recreate this playful moment, and he convinced Monroe to participate. The shoot took place on Lexington Avenue and 51st Street at 1 a.m., with a crowd of thousands and added police protection to manage the spectacle. The wind-blown skirt was created using a wind machine, simulating a subway breeze. The initial filming in New York City was chaotic because the noise from the large crowd made the footage unusable, so the scene had to be reshot on a set in California. Despite the challenges, the original on-location moment became iconic, and stills from the shoot were used in promotional material. The scene's impact extended beyond the screen. It solidified Monroe's status as a cinematic icon and became shorthand for how costume can carry meaning beyond plot. The white dress, designed by William Travilla, has since been recognized as one of the most famous dresses in film history. However, the attention the scene garnered had personal consequences for Monroe. Her then-husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, was reportedly angered by the publicity surrounding the scene. This contributed to their divorce shortly after the film's release. In the end, the white dress from The 7-Year Itch and the subway scene reminds viewers that costumes can carry narrative, personality, and controversy all at once. Finally, the crown of controversial costumes goes to a single gown that turned heads, shaped an icon, and tested Hollywood's rules all at once. Number 1. Mae West's Victorian gown in She Done Him Wrong. Now, we've reached a moment where costume and character collided in a way that changed Hollywood. In 1933, Mae West's Victorian gown in She Done Him Wrong wasn't merely clothing, it was a statement. Designed by Edith Head, the dress clung to West's figure in a way that highlighted her curves while playing with the social rules of the time. Every fold and seam seemed designed to tease and provoke, signaling that Lady Lou, the character West wrote and played, would not be contained. She moved through the film like a force, collecting attention, gifts, and admiration, and making it clear that she was calling the shots. The gown did more than outline her shape, it amplified her presence. George Raft, her co-star, famously remarked that she stole everything but the cameras, and anyone who watched could see why. On screen, West's confidence turned the Victorian-inspired silhouette into a tool of dominance. Audiences were captivated, critics were intrigued, and Paramount Studios found itself buoyed by the unexpected magnetism she brought to the screen. A single dress became central to the film's allure and its success. Before we forget, Mae West's Victorian gown in She Done Him Wrong also caught the attention of censors too. The Production Code Administration had already banned her play Diamond Lil from being adapted, and when Paramount tried to rename it and soften the edges, the censors weren't fooled. The suggestive dialogue, West's magnetic performance, and that figure-hugging gown caused chaos. Church leaders and moral guardians called it scandalous, claiming the film crossed lines the Hays Code was supposed to protect. Despite the warnings, Paramount went ahead, and the public couldn't look away. Letters poured in, criticizing the film as corrupting and inappropriate. Father Daniel Lord, co-author of the Hays Code, even singled it out, calling the movie "that Diamond Lil slipping by under a new name." The controversy became a flashpoint, showing Hollywood just how far audiences and censors would react to a woman commanding the screen with her charisma and wit. The film may have been a product of its time, but the gown ensured Mae West's influence would ripple across decades. If one dress and a few lines of dialogue could spark outrage, shape box office, and rewrite Hollywood's rules, then who truly holds the power over what women wear and say on screen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you enjoyed this video, click on the next video on your screen.